Almost every day you hear news about the environment. Most of it is terrible. Now, a lot of us have gotten immune to it also. But among all of this, there is one shiny piece of positive news. Wait, what? Some positive news about the environment? How did that even happen? The ozone layer is actually shrinking.
The ozone layer is on track to recover within 4 decades.
In fact, it is supposed to be completely healed by 2066. In fact, in 2040 only, except for some parts in Antarctica. So let's take a look at it. The first time any of us heard about the ozone layer was in the 1980s. The ozone layer is actually supposed to be a layer of gases in the stratosphere which was found to be thinning at both the poles. So technically it's not like a real hole or anything. It's just an area where the ozone levels have been depleted by more than 30%. You see, the ozone layer is responsible for protecting us against harmful UV rays, responsible for cancer and other stuff. So understandably people got worried. So let's see what's actually happening in the ozone layer. At any given time, ozone molecules are being created and destroyed. But without human intervention, the rates of both this creation and destruction remain the same. In other words, it remains at equilibrium. At some point of time, humans came in and destroyed this equilibrium. It was found that the culprit was something called CFCs, which stand for chlorofluorocarbons. CFCs are used in stuff like aerosol sprays, solvents, and most importantly, refrigerants. Like all of us these days use a fridge and an air conditioner. Actually, then they were thought to be the perfect chemicals. They were non reactive, they were cheap, and very effective. People knew that they were building up in the atmosphere, but since it was non reactive, nobody really thought of it as a problem. Right? Wrong. Turns out that the conditions high up in the stratosphere were very different from here down below. The non reactive CFCs were actually breaking down in the stratosphere and releasing a free chlorine atom. So, this free chlorine atom would then bind with ozone to give us oxygen and a chlorine monoxide molecule. The situation got really bad because lakhs and millions of these ozone molecules could be destroyed by just one chlorine atom. That's how potent it was. So, understandably, people got together. The first United Nations negotiations happened in 1986. So, all of us agreed on the Montreal Protocol. It was a massive success. Till date, it remains one of the highest ratified treaties, as all 197 UN member states had signed and ratified it. How is this even possible? There are quite a few reasons behind it. The first being the presence of easily available and cost effective substitutes. The world could shift easily to something called HFCs, which stand for hydrofluorocarbons. It was a lucky thing in a way that CFCs were now old technology and the patent was also out of date. So these companies did not necessarily benefit from using CFCs, so they could easily shift. The second reason was there was more unity at the world stage back then when it came to climate negotiations. The divide between developed and developing nations, which is so prominent right now, was not so wide back then. The third being the Montreal Protocol also had a multilateral fund. This multilateral funds took funds from developed countries and diverted them to developing countries, which helped meet their targets. So now the important question is, can we now take inspiration from this and replicate this success elsewhere also? Well, it is not so straightforward. You see, ODS, that is ozone depleting substances, were not widely emitted, so its control was possible. But today, the conundrum we are facing is the release of greenhouse gases, let's say mostly carbon dioxide. These greenhouse gases are emitted at a massive scale and are mostly a result of energy production, which happens everywhere. So, controlling greenhouse gases and CO2 is, of course, many times more difficult.
That also could be a role model also for when we tackle climate change. But it's actually the problem was quite restricted because there were some substitutes available for these CFCs, which really destroy this ozone layer. And nowadays we all work with the substitutes, and for the problem with the climate change is that CO2 cannot easily be substituted.
Another point of contention is that HFCs, that is hydrofluorocarbons, are also powerful greenhouse gases. In fact, we have signed a new amendment to the Montreal Protocol, also known as the Kigali Amendment, to address this very point. The distance between developed countries and developing countries is also massive these days. Most climate negotiations do not lead anywhere because people are busy playing the blame game. If we can learn one thing from this, it is to stay more united. Thank you for watching.